Hey, we are recording. Going Medieval. He was provided by Tinsley PR. It's been one of those weeks. It's not been that bad, but definitely I'm looking forward to just resting. Got a few things in my notes that I can talk about here. One, I was tempted of the three. Two of them I put in the Friday thing. One I decided not to because it's a VR game, and some VR I will cover. I didn't feel like covering this. Also, I was quite tired last night, and I just wanted to get through as much as I could, and not worry about extra things like this. What am I looking to do here? It honestly feels like it's been more than 1 week since I was in. But yeah, so the Thief franchise is coming back. That sounds all awesome, but it's a VR game. And crap, I don't remember what the name of it was. But still, it's like, what? That didn't quite seem right to me. That's what we're going for. I should admit, I have not played the original Thief games. I've only played the one I reviewed. When was that? Let me... Wait, no, not in that table. Here. Yeah, that was in 2014. Wow. Is that long ago? Oh, here it is. Okay. Thief VR Legacy of Shadow. For PC, Meta, and PlayStation. And it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I can understand why the idea, I have plenty of this, so why are you saying I don't? Okay, that's not true. There's nothing disabled that would prevent that. Maybe. It's also, yeah. Level skill needed, 0. Anyway, yeah, I remember playing that, and I enjoyed it, the Thief game in 2014. But I also do remember the thing I enjoyed most was there was a time you spent in an insane asylum. Well, it's a rundown, a ruined insane asylum. And it had this kind of spooky vibe to it, where it's like this is where it seemed more like there is magic in this world, or at least things beyond, well, supernatural things, I guess is how I should put it. That was the section I most enjoyed. And it just does actually leave me wondering a little bit if what are you doing? No, you know what? There. Despite how high animal husbandry is, it's not taken care of. From what I had read about the original game, it sounded like that might be kind of sort of close to what the original was, at least as far as really, it should be. Doesn't look like it's fine enough out, but whatever. You know what? I'm just gonna put down the wall to make sure it will be. You know what? Yeah, so I mean, I do have Thief, and I do want the original Thief, and I do want to play it at some point. I just... The heck? I have no idea why that's there. But I haven't gotten around to it. And there's also part of me, I will admit, that is a little uncertain about playing it. Just, it's an old enough game, and I know some of the controls back then were odd. So I'm not sure if it just how approachable it will be. You know, that will once it's actually built, that will work. No. There. There. No, wait, no, this one. Yeah, so let me just look at this again. I'm just looking at the press release while this game runs. I'll grant that I can understand it being nice for the atmosphere aspect of Thief, but well, going back to the 2014 game, it was in that damn it, in that insane asylum that I felt the most atmosphere. The rest just seemed like, yeah, it's the setting. You know, what wasn't necessarily all that impressive, one way or the other. So yeah, I just Thief is a franchise I really don't have enough experience with to state one thing one way or another, but it still is my impression from how some people react to it. Kind of like Deus Ex, the original Deus Ex games. Crap, I feel like there's another, but it's not coming to mind. Where it's like, you know, these were definite classics. You know, and there is still a cult following to them, such that you don't want to mess with that cult, kind of thing. So, yeah. And just, I am concerned that VR is not the way to resurrect this this franchise. Let me see, the other two things I have to talk about, both of which I also cover in the Friday thing, and both are at the end because they're non-gaming news. One does have a direct relation to computers, though, so let's start with that one. Fraunhofer, which is a German... I'm trying to remember if it's just an... No, it's... I think it's a university, or at least it's connected with a university. They do a lot of work on codecs and such. So, what is considered the best AAC audio codec encoder, audio encoder, is actually a Fraunhofer build. Unfortunately, because of the licensing stuff, you can't... If you wanted an FFmpeg, you need to compile it special. But in any case, they have developed or been involved with... The press release was not the clearest. It also didn't describe any of the specific technology in it, but they have developed JPEG XS. Now, this is not for image encoding. Let me say that because that may sound weird. Why they're talking about JPEG? JPEG is also used in video. So if you have ever try to set up a webcam in OBS, you can actually go in many times and try to tell it how it should send the data, and one of the options will be MJPEG, motion JPEG, because it is a means of encoding the images and send the individual frames and sending it, transmitting it. There's other options, I don't remember. Some webcams, though, they will actually offer H.264, which was something like a webcam, that's fine. But for more professional uses, no, you wouldn't want to use MJPEG, because it is just intra-frame encoding, not inter-frame encoding. So or rather compression. So you don't have it compressing from one frame to the next. It's just this image is compressed, this image is compressed, this image is compressed. They're not based on any of the others. Now, that's very important because that will give the heck? Okay, that was very odd. That's why I do remember that they weren't being refueled unless they were connected. Yeah. Anyhow, so for professional purposes, such as transmitting video from a camera to a computer, there's actually a lot of options you can use that do exist today, but many of them require specialized hardware, like an SDI connection or HDSDI, coax cables, things like that. Yeah, because of the specialized hardware, so you need boxes that convert, well, boxes to receive, boxes to convert, all that. It can actually be kind of high latency, or at least higher than desired latency, especially as we try to push to higher and higher resolutions and bit depths. So, JPEG XS is meant to be a way to address this. It is a professional codec, or mezzanine codec, it also described. But the idea is it will compress the images, providing visually lossless compression at low latency. It can be highly parallelized, supports 12 to 16 bit for color depth, meaning definitely HDR compatible, and it can do this all over Ethernet. So a completely standard common connection. So yeah, this is... Oh yeah, and it can also do this at up to 8K. So 8K and 12 to 16 bit, very much forward looking. I doubt we're ever actually going to see 12 and 16 bit be useful. I'm doubtful even 10 bit at the moment is going to be all that is long term going to be all that useful. I can explain that in a little bit. And 8K will only be a thing in professional circles, I believe. Because I mean 4K is already pushing whether or not you will even be able to discern a difference between it and high resolutions, and some potentially even some resolutions a little lower. 8K is certainly going to be in a there's no way you're going to be able to tell the difference between that and other resolutions near it. And I would also believe that 4K to 8K, many people would never be able to see that difference. So, but still, in a professional setting, it can be helpful having that, because imagine something like a sports game. That would allow you to now, if it's 8K, you can cut that thing down to a quarter. You still have a 4K image, but you have now effectively zoomed in. It's a digital zoom, but it's still, you can very effectively do that without having to enlarge any pixels. You're just cropping things out. So it would it would fill a 4K screen more easily, more accurate. Whatever. I want to explain the 12 to 16-bit thing. So, traditional color, full color, has been 8-bit. Except that's actually not how many displays try to display it. It actually uses 6-bit with dithering, or frame rate control, FRC. Where the idea is, I think I talked about this before. You have two colors. Well, you want to get... You want to get that color. So, but you don't have at 6-bit the accuracy to actually reproduce this color, but you can produce that color and that color. I was hoping those would be different. Okay. So so this color can't be produced, but these two can be. And let's just assume they are in fact adjacent to each other in the spectrum, not like this where they are clearly all different. So what you would do is you'd actually have the display bouncing between this value and this value, because as it goes back and forth, this dithering will produce this color to what you actually see. Okay? So that's a way to simplify from 8-bit down to 16-bit. Now 10-bit, thing is, plenty of displays, they're not true 10-bit. They're actually 8-bit with that same kind of dithering. Okay, so 12-bit could potentially be recreated with 10-bit and dithering. 16 would be down to 14, but it still is. I doubt we're actually going to see where that's going to be all that meaningful. At 12 to 16. I mean, think about it. We're still, technically, we should be doing like Rec 2020 color space. But what are all the what are a whole bunch of displays actually using? It's, oh crap, it's leaving my mind now. DCI-P3, that's it. Which, is it larger than the 709 color space we've been using for years? Yeah. But it's not that much larger. 2020, Rec 2020 is huge. It's like legitimately double the size of, and this is just for colors, like double the size of 709. DCI-P3 is like a third larger. Yeah, I have significant doubts that HDR is, well, I have significant doubts that HDR is actually being developed, is being used in a way that matters. Because also to me, it's like the improved colors. I like that. I like that idea for HDR. But there's also the I want to. But what a lot of people are focused on, and I think it's because the industry is telling you to focus on this, because it's probably also the cheapest to implement, is just the ability for it to have higher brightness. Which, I mean, yeah, okay, that can be nice, but it's also one of those things where eventually the industry is going to have to realize, holy shit, we shouldn't have done, why are we doing this? We're going to get sued when people realize that we're damaging their eyeballs with this. I was kind of like how there's apparently now a bill, or at least talk of a bill, to regulate the brightness of, or to lower the maximum brightness for headlights on cars. And it's like, well, there are people in the industry that want to have televisions that would be able to produce a flash of light and have it be a beam coming out of your television to your eyes that would be at the brightness or greater than the brightness of a tactical flashlight, which is designed to visually stun you. That's the standards that they're trying to push for. Why does anyone think this is a good idea? It's a terrible idea. It is only a terrible idea, but that's what they're doing. That's what they're pushing for. And it's also, I'm sorry, my eyes are sensitive enough. I have all my displays at their lowest brightness, and they can still be too bright. Like, I mean, I not only have the backlight on the laptop turned down as far as it can be, I also went into the drivers and set the brightness lower, and it's still in some ways brighter than I needed. It's just lower than that, the colors were shifting, and I didn't want that. It's like, why are we going with apparently everyone is blind? The standards that it's like, well, people are blind. So yeah, I mean, it's anyway. Yeah, so I don't know how much the 12 and 16, but I mean, it can be nice because that way, like, when I started putting my television shows and movies and such onto the server, one thing, and I was doing research into how to do that, one thing I saw very commonly recommended was use 10-bit color, even though, except for the UHD Blu-rays, it's all 8-bit, still do 10-bit. Why should you do that? Because the math being done on the 8-bit in a 10-bit space is actually more accurate. So you're more likely to preserve things correctly, and it can actually result in, because of it being more correct, not only will the image quality be better in the end, but it also may allow it to compress better, because there's going to be less error, less noise in the results. So yeah. So say I can understand that for the 12 to 16-bit, but that'd likely only be in the professional space. That would matter, not in any consumer space, which I should also mention. What are the applications for JPEG XS? There is professional stuff of like cameras at some sports arena. But there's also machine vision, so like cameras on your car that feed into a self-driving system could use it, where it's just a standard that the cameras are putting out. Should be doing it this way. That's correct. And I should also do this. That's fine up there. Let's also... Oh, good, that is actually just dirt there. Right there. So yeah, that could be how it is sent there, but it's at low latency and potentially at a higher quality than what's currently possible, which should improve the quality of such machine vision. There's also, going back to VR and AR, it could be the standard used when you're sending the image from whatever GPU you have, whether it's in a desktop, laptop, or in a console. You could be using JPEG XS to send it, which again, lower latency and potentially higher quality video. So it can improve that. I'm trying to remember if it was mentioning anything else, but nothing's really coming to mind. I doubt it would be used in consumer video streaming, but potentially could be. I don't think anyone would want a user to to be trying to stream JPEG XS to YouTube, to Twitch, to any of those places, because we're talking about something that's meant for visual loss, to be visually lossless. So it's still going to be, while not heavily compressed, well, that's the whole point I'm actually trying to get to. It's going to be a large data stream. I don't think any of them would want that coming in. Would be the best quality, but no, there's no way that's what you'd want. Just trying to think, is there anything more to say on that, or can I move on to the environment topic I made a note for? I should probably try to put down some more stairs. No. Well, no, that is correct. Okay. There. Okay. There. There. Oh wait, no. That's not there. There. Okay. That's going right over the top, so here. There. Okay. Ah, yes, I should also do that. Sorry. I got distracted realizing I should do this. That's up. There. So the last thing that I have is kind of neat. I mean, it depends on your knowledge of astronomy, though, for just how interesting it is. We've known for technically over a century that the Milky Way, our galaxy, and Andromeda are... Well, Andromeda is, from our perspective, Andromeda is approaching. Meaning it looks like the two galaxies will collide. Nah, that's fine. Technically, perhaps I should have built this over here, but whatever. This will work. But yeah, so, and to help give some context, the galaxy cluster we are in is called the Local Group. That's just the name for it. Andromeda is the largest. The Milky Way is right next to it in size. I didn't look too close, but as I recall, it's one of those things that's actually hard to tell because, you know, being within the Milky Way, it's hard to know just how large it is. But generally, I want to say that it is. I want to turn these off. Generally, I want to say it is accepted that it's so broken. The Milky Way is smaller, but some of the older estimates for how large the Milky Way is were incorrect, that we are closer to Andromeda than we used to believe. Mainly from mass, that's the main thing. But yeah, so we've known since like 1912 Andromeda's approaching. So concern is the galaxies colliding, which because... I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Galaxies are in some ways fluid, you could almost say. Because it's a whole bunch of mass that's only connected by gravity, which gravity is not a rigid connection. So when two galaxies collide, they can have a lot of that mass spin out of control because the chaos of the event will will break that gravitational connection. Well, what NASA and ESA have done, NASA with Hubble, ESA with its Gaia space telescope, which is kind of funny seeing it described as, well, NASA used Hubble. It's like, well, Hubble is actually, it technically belongs to both NASA and ESA, which National Aeronautics and Space Administration for the United States. ESA is the European Space Agency. Anyway, they took that data, took measurements from those, fed it into some simulations with a total of 22 variables, and they were technically Monte Carlo simulations. What's a Monte Carlo simulation? Well, Monte Carlo is a reference to the gambling area, because it applies randomness to the work. So the idea is, there's a lot to chop down. So the idea is that you do actually intentionally put some randomness in there because you can't account for everything. So you have that randomness to hopefully have a better representation in the end, because things won't always. You don't want it to be deterministic, because if your inputs are wrong, then you're always going to get the wrong answer. Well, what they found when doing that is only about the heck? How is a tree reserved by a cow? Anyway, what they determined is that the half of the simulations, they did 100,000. Half of them, showed it would collide. There would be a collision. Half said, nope, there won't be. And the reason why, at least for how the NASA press release described it, excuse me, is both Andromeda and the Milky Way, we are such large galaxies that we actually have dwarf galaxies orbiting us. And these are potentially the result from past mergers, past galactic mergers. In fact, one thing that I saw, this was years ago, we are technically closer. This is another one of those things where it's hard to know much about the Milky Way galaxy because we are inside of it. We are technically closer to the supermassive black hole of a different galaxy than our own. Because they found evidence, and this was years ago, maybe it was disproven, but they found evidence that another galaxy actually already collided with a smaller galaxy, already collided with and has sufficiently merged with the Milky Way, I guess, that while we are about 70,000 light years away from Sagittarius A star, that's the name of the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, this galaxy that merged in, its supermassive black hole is like 30,000 light years away. That's where what's left of that galaxy, the core of that galaxy, resides. Because it collided in, and the Milky Way was so much larger, it just absorbed it. Well, that would still be a very disruptive event, but the Milky Way and Andromeda are so near in size, they're so massive, a collision would probably not just see one eat the other, it would see them both cast off a lot of mass into intergalactic space, ultimately settling down into a new merged galaxy. Exactly what that would resemble, unsure. There's some that would say, oh, it would be an elliptical galaxy. I personally just find that odd. Why? Because I'm saying a solar system forms from what would look like an elliptical nebula, if you will, just an amorphous blob, but it evolves into a spiral shape. So it seems odd to me, the idea that spiral galaxies are the young ones, elliptical are the old. And I get the whole, you see predominantly old stars in it, but it still is, if the mass... Elliptical galaxies, they're very large, they are red because of the older red stars, but it still is, if you look at a solar system, it collapses down ultimately to a disk along the... Crap, I can't think of the name, but there's an actual name for the plane that the majority of the planets in a solar system fall on. Is that the ecliptic? I think I have that wrong, but... And except for Pluto, and maybe this supposed Planet X, all the planets in our solar system are like within 5 degrees of that plane. And it just is how it all aligns. It makes sense for it to align that way because of the rotation of the sun. That you wouldn't be in a polar orbit. That would be weird. Although, well, no, never mind. Moving on. But anyhow, so their simulations suggested only 2% of the time in this 100,000 simulations was there a direct head-on collision. There were still collisions in other cases, but that could be a near miss that saw the two galaxies fall into a decaying orbit of each other, so they would eventually merge. But then the other half saw that actually, no, they would miss. Why they would miss is what's interesting. And coming back to the whole, we have dwarf galaxies. We're both so large, we have dwarf galaxies orbiting us. The largest for the Andromeda, it said, was M33. The largest for us is the Large Magellanic Cloud. And by the way, there's also a Small Magellanic Cloud. These both the Small and Large Magellanic Clouds look like just clouds. They do not resemble a spiral galaxy at all. They're just there. I'm not... Let me try looking up what M33 looks like. I know I've seen images of it before, I just don't remember. Okay. Really? Really? Huh. Okay. I did not realize that. Yeah, it's definitely spiral. So I was checking on when I was writing up the news. I was checking on what the largest. Well, I wanted to make sure. I knew Andromeda is the queen of the local group. That is how she's sometimes referred to as, because she is the largest. And I was pretty sure the Milky Way is the next largest. But I wasn't sure about that, so I wanted to check. And what I saw mentioned was that the third largest, and it is quite a bit smaller than both, like half the size, is the Triangulum Galaxy. That's M33. And what was written up, it's a dwarf galaxy of Andromeda. Um, really? Hang on, that doesn't seem right. Just looking at the information here, it's saying that the Large Magellan Cloud is a Magellanic-type spiral galaxy. I don't... Huh. Okay, no, I guess that is. Well, that's a Magellanic spiral. Okay, I guess it kinda, sorta? Huh. Okay. It has a single bar. Well, is a spiral galaxy with only one spiral arm. I'm just used to seeing Magellanic Cloud, the images of the Magellanic Cloud, Large Magellanic Cloud, that is, hang on just a second. And there. That looks more like it is just a cloud, not a, and not with such a discernible shape to it. But it's also, what I was seeing here is saying that that is still second smallest spiral galaxy in the local group after the Large Magellan Cloud. Wait, what? Triangulum Galaxy, the Wikipedia here. The galaxy is the second smallest. Oh, second smallest, okay. So, the Large Magellan Cloud is small. Got it. For whatever reason, I was just reading that backwards. I can't quite tell if there's blight in here. Yeah, it looks like those are all fine. But a main part of these simulations that they did was... Oh, wow. I'm gonna have to fix that. Now keep it on. Was that they included the mass and positions of the dwarf gap, well, at least Large Magellan Cloud and M33. And that apparently their positions and masses are enough that they could pull the Milky Way and Andromeda off from colliding with each other. Which is kind of crazy. That you would think that if the two largest galaxies in a cluster are on a path to collide, that's just going to happen. You can't avoid that. But it's like, no, these two, much smaller, like a fraction the size of either. Hang on, let me just... Okay. Let's see if I can find it in here. That you wouldn't think that those two would be able to have such a difference. Yeah, so just orders of magnitude, both Andromeda and the Milky Way. And the Milky Way is very much, technically they'd all be estimates, but the Milky Way is absolutely an estimate because we're within it. But the order of magnitude there is, for both Andromeda and the Milky Way, is 12. So 10 to the power of 12 times some factor, right? M33 is at 10 to the power of 10. So we're talking 1% the size, 1/100, just an order of magnitude. It's actually a little bit larger because it's 5 times 10 to the 10, whereas Andromeda is supposed to be 1.5 times 10 to the 12. Milky Way's 1.15, but it's still, we're talking on the order of 100 times smaller. And that's for the Triangulum Galaxy. The Large Magellan Cloud is at is at about just 1 times 10 to the 10. So is like straight up 1%, the mass. So that's together about 6% of the mass of just one Andromeda, so it's actually 3% of the combined mass of the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy. That can be enough to avoid a collision. Yeah, and it's also kind of funny because I'm just using Wikipedia here because it's what I have pulled up. It actually has 2 masses for the Large Magellan Cloud, and I find this amusing. The 1 times 10 to the 10th is excluding dark matter. The and then we got 1.38 times 10 to the 11th that includes it. And it's like, it's not including this measurement for the others, this distinction for the others. So I don't know. There's also how would you? That just seems a stupid distinction to try to have. Because the whole thing with dark matter is you can't see it. So how are you making a mass measurement unless you're just looking at and assuming that, oh, I guess I should then, wait, then, oh boy, I hate this. That would make the, okay, so one of the ways that they try to measure mass is like, oh, there's this much brightness, there's certain things, so basically, because the light from galaxy has to come from the stars. So if you, in theory, can do measurements on that light to determine how much mass there is. But you do have the obvious problem of light can be blocked. So then you'd want to go with other means, such as just orbital dynamics, to figure out the mass. This is how they figure dark matter must exist, because we see things with gravitational behaviors that shouldn't be possible. What are you doing? No, you are going to do this, okay? Stop running away from this. Okay, that did take care. Anyway. But it's just, orbital dynamics should be more reliable. So it does seem odd to me that you would even bother mentioning a hypothetical light matter only mass measurement, because I'm just not sure how you figure you're getting it completely accurate there. But it is also, I will acknowledge, I hate dark matter. I think it's a lousy, at least, if nothing else, it's a lousy term. It should not be used the way it is. And I will explain that. But it's also weird, because in one spot I did say M33 is the second smallest. Hang on, let me look at it again. It's the second smallest spiral galaxy in the local group after the Large Magellan Cloud, meaning that the Large Magellan Cloud would be the smaller. It gives a mass of 5 times 10 to the 10. But the mass, including dark matter, is 1.38 times 10 to the 11th. So that's an order of magnitude, that's like double the mass. with a large Magellan Cloud. So it must be that, no, we typically do use the excluded measurement there. Or the triangulum, yeah, well, no. Yeah, that has to be it. Okay, and I'm just looking at one more thing here. Okay, just apparently there was there are streams of neutral hydrogen and stars between Andromeda and M33, which indicates that they have previously collided, and that's part of how you'd say that it's a dwarf galaxy to it. They are, because they would be linked then. But anyway, I should explain that the whole what I said about I don't like dark matter, at least as far as the term goes, because I mean it's kind of what I was saying about how you may have the measurement wrong for how the amount of light produced by a galaxy relates to its mass. In which case, then it's not that there is this unknown material that has mass but doesn't interact with light. This would be dark matter. It isn't that. It's just you did the damn math wrong, kind of thing. Or there's just there's something blocking the light that you don't know how to account for. And so I despise dark matter because you hear that, you look at it, and you think that it's one coherent substance, and it's not. Well, very likely it's not. It is very likely actually many different things that we just don't know how to account for. But as you work at it and come up with various possible solutions, you would eventually chip away at it, and you may eventually find that yes, it is a new novel material that does in fact just not interact with light. I'm gonna stop here. Like that's entirely possible that there will be some of that, but it's also possible that some of it is just, yeah, it's something we don't know how to account for. And that's it. And that once we do, that the amount of dark matter disappears, because it would be part of normal matter then. And that, yeah. It's kind of like, and this may make more sense, for some people, it's kind of like how the term PTSD is actually harmful. Because so many different psychological and emotional conditions have been wrapped up under PTSD that people that should receive wildly different treatments will get the same just because, oh, you've been diagnosed with PTSD. And it's like, yeah, no, it's completely different. Between something like shell shock from World War I and, say, today, somebody that's been involved with a shooting. Both of those, more domestic shooting, both of those would fall under PTSD. But it is wildly different what caused them and therefore how you treat them. And I see dark matter, the term dark matter, being like that, where it is without a specific definition, and so it is an umbrella term that is going to cause and has caused people to believe it is a singular thing when it is not. Also reminds me of one other example I can give for that. That came to mind for me within the past few weeks. Autism, I believe, is also being used in the same way. Because I do see some people that throw around autism as though it's like, oh, well, because I will hyper-focus on something, or just I can so focus on something, that makes me autistic. And it's like, maybe. But there's also levels of autism that I get. It's a spectrum, but there are points of it where you are not functional as an adult. Like, you cannot interact with people properly, or you can be dangerously violent towards property, towards other people, including family members, so people who you do care for, and also dangerous towards yourself and other things. And I see that as, like, okay, if you're just somebody who you can focus on something, but you're you're high functioning, yeah, no, stop saying you're autistic, I feel, because you should not let the impression be, unless, we need to have a distinction between those two, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. Because labeling those both autism then means that if somebody says, yeah, I can't do this, I need to get home and take care of my autistic kid, that they might be thinking, oh, well, autism's not that bad. I have that. It's like, no, you might be talking about how if I'm not there, the house may be partially destroyed. Like, there was one story I saw where a parent was talking about how they've had to replace this child's door with, I think they did say it had to be a steel one, because they would so attack the door. And it's not that the kid is bad, it's just the child's autism leads them to doing this. That a normal door, because a lot of them are actually hollow, he would just break through. So it needed to be a steel door, because otherwise he could break through, and when he's in a violent episode, and be dangerous to everyone. It's like that's they've had to constantly repair holes that he's punched in walls in his room. It's do not. I think it is wrong to use the same term to describe that behavior. And I'm high functioning, but I'll just really focus down on something, so that's what makes me autistic. It's like, no, those are completely different things. Fine, it's a spectrum, whatever. Give different names to the ends of it, okay? I mean, it's like, yeah, visible light is a spectrum. It's also part of the larger electromagnetic spectrum, but it's still, red and blue are different things. We call them red and blue. Let's have those different terms and keep using those. And going back to dark matter, and let's apply that as well. That it is a spectrum of materials, potentially. We don't know. I'm going to say it's most likely that, though. That is my belief, because I don't think it's reasonable that... I think it is very arrogant to believe that we have such an understanding of cosmology already that this thing that we don't understand must be a singular thing. There must be a single answer to it. No, let's just say, I'm going to say dark matter spectrum. So there's red dark matter right now and blue dark matter right now, and everything in between. And we may find that red dark matter is actually normal matter. We just didn't know to account for it before, or didn't know how to account for it before. But maybe the blue dark matter, maybe that's the stuff that is actually this hypothetical substance that light does not interact with but has mass. You know, like, maybe that is. Okay, but you want to make sure that you treat those as separate things, because if you're looking only for the blue, you'll never find the red. Even though it's dark matter, but you will never find the red, because you will never think that, oh, we just didn't account for it. So, yeah, so I really don't know why you would include these two numbers of excluding dark matter, including dark matter. Yeah, I really don't know why that's there. But it is Wikipedia, so that may tell you part of it. Yeah, it's one of those sad things. I remember so many years ago, I would have felt that for some of this stuff, because of that high-functioning autism. There we go. Where people just focus. I would have thought that you could trust things like some of this stuff, because the people that really, really care about astronomy and such would make sure that this is all accurate. I don't know if I would trust that today. Because, I mean, it's like they on Wikipedia, 2 different pages, Large Magellan Cloud, and then the Triangulum Galaxy, that's M33. On M33, it does say that, yeah, it is, the Large Magellan Cloud is smaller, but if you use the including dark matter mass for the Large Magellan Cloud and compare that to the only mass given in the Triangulum Galaxy, Large Magellan Cloud is larger. So, yeah, I mean, so you do have an issue there. Anyway. Alright, that's only been enough of my prattling. And I am also thinking, by the way, I will acknowledge that maybe I should write up that little rant that I just did about, like, red and blue dark matter. I think that that's actually a decent concept. Maybe I will be able to work that into a story at one point. I've got enough science fiction ones. Science fiction ideas, I just don't know how that would come up that it would matter. Like, why would these people be talking about it? I don't know. But it's still, I kind of like that idea. See you next time.